This podcast is foreign language.
Give him head? Be a beacon? Welcome to Here You Guys Podcast. I'm Rob, that's Liam, and this week we watch Sneakers from 1992. A film that somehow manages to be clever, funny, paranoid, and weirdly cozy all at once. And straight away the cast hits you like a brick. It's ridiculous. Redford, Poitier, Aykroyd, Strathern, McDonnell, Phoenix. It's like someone built the perfect heist crew in a character creator and then just hit export. Every scene feels like you're watching people who are effortlessly good at what they do, even when everything is falling apart around them. And then you've got Ben Kingsley, who you absolutely cannot ignore. He's the villain. He's the old friend. He's the emotional anchor of the whole story. Kingsley brings this calm, philosophical menace that makes every scene with Redford feel like two old chess rivals finally sitting down for the rematch they've been avoiding for 20 years. And yeah, the tech is ancient. Beige boxes, floppy disks, interfaces that look like they were designed on a calculator. But the film still works because the tech was never the point. Sneakers is about paranoia, trust, secrets, and the idea that information is the most dangerous thing in the world. The gadgets have aged, but the story hasn't. Sneakers is one of those films that stays sharp even when the hardware doesn't, and revisiting it now feels like rediscovering a 90s classic that was quietly ahead of its time. And that's coming from me who has seen it when the tech was, I guess, cutting edge for this kind of thing. But you've never seen this film, have you?
No. I've never seen it. And
so
for those reasons... Oh, sorry.
Can you differentiate the two then? Can you take the story away from the tech and still enjoy this film?
100%.
Okay.
That was my concern going into this. I thought, like, some movies just age out for one extent or another. I think at the end of the last episode, we mentioned movies such as, like, The Net, Hackers, a movie we've covered on this podcast. But while it is pleasingly charming, it is incredibly of its time. And you can even say something like the same about maybe Swordfish, which was a bit later, early 2000s, but has that same kind of vibe. This film remains pleasingly analog to an extent, and more than anything, surprisingly timeless. I thought it was going to be like, oh, well, it's so stuck with the tech of the 90s. And you mentioned the intro. It's like, yes, there is tech in this movie, but it's not what holds the film together. It's not really what it's about. It kind of drives the plot to one extent or another, but it's never that important. And the movie it reminds me the most of is actually the first Mission Impossible film. If anything, actually, the break-in at the Playtronics factory at the end of the film it feels like it was lifted directly by Mission Impossible, where instead of like dropping down into the room, he does drop down into the room, but he just has to walk very slowly. It kind of sums up the differences. That film is like all bombast. This film kind of pays it all back. There aren't really massive set pieces in the traditional sense. But it's all about the charisma.
So how insane was it that Mission Impossible was 3 years after? Just 3 years after.
Crazy, yeah.
That's mad. You can feel the tension amp up, as you've already mentioned, against Mission Impossible. It's so tense watching Robert Redford walk at snail's pace through a room. That's insane. And when you say set pieces, it's funny that, because I wrote this down, it's funny that this entire film, the only real action set piece is Whistler driving a van. That's the only real action set piece that you get in this.
It's interesting you say it, because I don't think any of the scenes in this film are particularly tense, and I don't think that's actually a problem. Like, this is an ensemble movie, it's a thriller, it's a comedy, it's a caper, and I'm usually a little bit kind of wary of capers, but I think this is genuinely a fantastic one. So just to get to the point, I think this film is really good.
Yes, yeah.
But it's because it has that easy charm. It's just a pleasant movie to be around. At no point, when it came down to like picking my favorite scene, it was actually quite tricky, because it's not like single scenes necessarily jump out at you. There's not like massive showdowns beyond like you say, Whistler driving the truck, and that's all part of is it Playtronic? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Playtronic, the company. The toy company, yeah.
That's the closest this movie has to like a big set piece. And even that feels relatively low-key because it invites, even though it came out later, it invites those direct comparisons to Mission Impossible. You're like, okay, I've seen what the bombastic version of this sequence looks like. And this doesn't have any of that tension that you think of the bit when he's hanging from the ceiling, which obviously looks super iconic, but the way they set it up with the timings and the sweat dripping off his face, they kind of set up that as being something that could potentially happen in this film, when Dan Aykroyd and Sidney Poitier are telling him about the security system. But then beyond him just walking quite slowly, it just kind of happens, which, again, is fine because this is a vibes movie, despite the fact that it's incredibly plotty. And it all comes back to what you mentioned earlier, the absolutely outstanding cast.
So I do consider that scene tense, probably because I don't like people walking that slow. Like,
Oh yeah, it is weird. Yeah, I think actually
like,
when you
just
rewatch
move,
that
just move.
sequence, I think they've slowed it down in camera because it actually looks slightly unnatural. When
Yeah,
there's a shot
yeah.
of him from behind when he's walking, and I was like, I think Robert Redford was walking a bit too fast, and they've decided to slow it down. And they're just like, we can't ask Robert to do the scene again. We'll just slow it down in camera.
Even when you have like Buddy Wallace, and we've gone straight to the end, but whatever. Even
It's
when you
fine.
have Buddy Wallace played by Eddie Jones shooting the ceiling,
Yeah, that scene comes out of nowhere when he just
that scene
starts
comes up.
blowing holes in the
Yeah,
ceiling.
it's just like that's the only, not tension. That's the only bit of danger that I feel in this. I don't even feel they're in danger when they're meant to be being hunted by. Cosmo has put Robert Redford Bishop's real name into like using the black box. He's put his real name in. I don't even feel like tension or anything because Robert Redford doesn't seem to care. Oh, you put my name in it. That's fine. I'll find a way out of it.
But he
Everything about
just
this
has
movie
that
is just
easy
is cool,
charm.
isn't it? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Easy Rider all day, every day.
Well, it all comes from Robert Redford. So, like, you know, you mentioned the cast there. Like, the first thing that really jumps out at you, like you said, is the cast and the fact that, you know, as good as the film is and the script by Lawrence Lasker is genuinely impressive, but this is a totally overqualified cast for the film. Make it like it's a fun film. It does not deserve this cast. As good as the script is, it might be deserving of, say, a Sidney Poitier, a River Phoenix, but in no way is it deserving of Redford, Poitier, Phoenix, Aykroyd, and Ben Kingsley. And that's not to mention like the scene-stealing likes of David Strathairn and Mary McDonnell, who I think are both genuinely fantastic in this film. And it's like, you might look at this film and go, why are they all here? And you know, oh, the answer is easy. It's Robert Redford. Basically, everyone in this film was just like, I want to work with Robert Redford. He's made the call and everyone has answered. And that's where you end up with a cast like this.
I would probably put for River Phoenix, that being 50-50. Okay, working with Robert Redford. But the reason that he said before he passed away, the reason why he took Sneakers was due to the fact that he was so involved in My Own Private Idaho, so involved in that character, and it like kind of just messed with his head, that he just wanted to take a film just for the paycheck. So he took this film, he says, just for the paycheck. And I got to call a bit of bullshit on that, a bit of scrutiny, because, okay, yeah, you took it just for the paycheck, but there's no way you didn't go, I get to work with Redford, Aykroyd, Poitier, you know, to a point as well. Strathairn, I don't know how popular Strathairn is back then, but...
Well, no, I think the big draw, obviously Rob Redford's the massive draw, and make no mistake, for as good as the cast is, and I didn't even mention Kingsley, I think Sidney Poitier would be like a massive draw for people, you know, around that time. Because, you know, obviously he wasn't as famous as he was, but coming back to the 70s and his legacy in Hollywood, his importance to black cinema, all these other things, that would have been a massive draw for sure. But it's Robert Redford at the set in this movie. And as good as everyone else is, it just reminds you what an absolute goddamn movie star Robert Redford is. And there are scenes with him and Sidney Poitier where you can feel the chemistry. It's not quite Redford and Newman in the likes of like The Sting or Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. And let's be clear, this movie isn't quite as good as those. But they do have that easy chemistry. And you're talking about two screen icons who just fit naturally together on screen.
But what's funny is they know how to share the screen as well and not suck all the energy out of the room. Because usually if you've got a big name, it's all about that big name and then the people there just to make that big name look better. But for some reason, nobody sucks the energy out of the room. They all seem to bounce off each other so well. I love the interaction between Aykroyd and Poitier. Like one's a CIA guy and one's like the biggest conspiracy theorist you've ever
Which
seen.
I totally buy into, by the way. Everything that Dan Aykroyd says in this film, I'm just like, I can totally imagine Dan Aykroyd saying that.
There's no way he didn't have that information. It probably just in the script said, Dan, use one of your conspiracy theories, or use one of your theories, should we say? Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that was off the
hand.
cuff. Yeah, it felt like Dan Aykroyd moments rather than...
Did you...
And sorry, that is an issue I have with this film. And I assume it's to do with Motherboard, but having the nickname Mother is just rough. It's just rough.
Well, Whistler as well. I mean, is it because he's a bat? Is it Sonar? Is that what you're trying to say?
But it sounds cooler. Mother just, I don't know, man. I'm just not buying into it. This way, if you gave me the option, what would you prefer your nickname to be, Whistler or Mother? I'm like, let me think about that for a second. I think I'm going to go with Whistler.
Did you think Whistler was slightly overpowered as well?
Oh, he was basically, like, one of the things of this film, one of the reasons I think it's brilliant, is that even though they're all good at their job, for the most part, they're not superheroes. So I was thinking of like other ensembles, and the obvious ones, the ones we've already mentioned, I know they're in slightly different genres, but you think of Ocean's 11. This doesn't have any of the suave, sexy locations of an Ocean's film, and it doesn't have the action of a Mission Impossible film. And the other thing it doesn't have is characters with borderline superpowers. These characters aren't all fallible. They are fallible for the most part, and they're just kind of good at their job, but they're not superheroes, with the exception of Whistler, who is like, okay, dude, we get it. You're blind, so you have really good hearing. But some of his, and you, like you said, you can only describe them as fucking powers, are ludicrous. They're the only two things take me out of this movie. Ben Kingsley and aesthetically everything surrounding him, which we will get to, and Whistler's apparent superpowers.
So I'll go straight into my Rob take now we mentioned because I brought it up. But one of my Rob takes is Whistler is basically Daredevil.
Yeah.
David Strathairn as Whistler is one of the best parts of the film. I do believe he's blind, but he's the most capable person in the entire crew. The man can hear a room like sonar, identify machinery by sound, track movement through vibrations, and in the film's most outrageous flex, drive a van using nothing but audio cues and instinct. It's full Daredevil energy, and I think it's brilliant, but it's so wrong for this film. Like basically, it's used just to get him out of it's plot armor. It's used to get them out of whatever they. Okay, how do we explain? Because you can't see in the building. How do we explain? Oh, using a sonar or using a mic, Whistler can tell you exactly what room is what. How? How the fuck is that a thing?
I mean, they kind of half explain it. The thing is, this film is so good at what it does that you kind of go with it anyway.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is you go into this film and you think, all right, Robert Redford's going to steal the show because he is a charisma machine and he is a superstar and you feel it on the screen. Because like outside of him, the obvious ones to go for are, you're like, oh, well, I'm really looking forward to seeing Sidney Poitier. I'm looking forward to seeing River Phoenix. I think of the supporting cast, the two that truly stand out are actually David Strathairn and Mary McDonnell. And Strathairn in particular, I think he's maybe the kind of quietly the MVP of this movie. And because he's so good as Whistler, you kind of accept his superpower. It's like you say, it's a plot device. Like, how are we going to have the group that, they're actually called sneakers. Well, just the sneakers. How are we going to get them to find, let's be clear, Ben Kingsley's evil lair? How are we going to get? Oh, because we're going to use Strathairn's magic hearing powers again.
Yeah.
Like the whole sequence, I'm not sure if it makes sense at all, but it's also surprisingly awesome.
But he's doing that as well through Robert Redford. So he's doing that through Robert. Like, explain what you've seen. Okay, I just happen to have a keyboard set up for road sounds. So I'm just going to play my keyboard of road sounds, and you can tell me. And it is. What I think is so good is I think David Strathairn was going in as going, I've been hired against these 4 or 5 fantastic actors. There's no pressure on me to try and match them. So I'm just going to have fun with my character. And I think that, and I do think that shines.
But he's the only character, because if we're talking about ensembles, and I'd be interested, because I mentioned earlier about like what I consider a caper. Would you consider, especially the latter movies, would you consider Fast and Furious movies to be capers?
Oh, yes.
They really are, right?
When they become so ridiculous, they're caper movies. Like when you're dragging a van or you jump a tank or you do it, absolute capers.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, there's like, my point being is that he's the only character I think you could literally take out this film and arguably put in a Fast and Furious film. I don't think he'd feel out of place because of his apparent powers.
He's part of Dom's family, is he?
Yeah. But to go back to that sequence in particular, and there are a number of sequences in this film where they really do show rather than tell. It highlights the art of the ensemble and something this movie does really well. When you have a room full of characters, and like you said, big actors, big names, those sequences could be ruined if they were trying to outdo each other. And one of the tricks you'll see in movies like this is basically they're explaining the story to somebody else on screen, but really what they're doing is they're explaining it to you. It's it's Basil exposition time. And what they often do is one character will start talking, then another character will ostensibly finish their sentence, and they'll be telling the story, and they'll all have their little moment. And if you do that wrong, what you end up with is the last 2 movies in the Mission Impossible franchise. Some of the dialogue and the delivery in those films are terrible. Like, yes, the high stakes and the stunts are all amazing, but some of the dialogue and the delivery in those movies is genuinely bad. It's kind of like, if we're going back to another caper, which we just mentioned, Fast and Furious, it's all about finding that sweet spot in terms of tone.
Yeah.
And, Mission Impossible probably had it around movies 3 through 5. Fast and the Furious had it through probably 4 through 6 or 7. But you see those series lasted long enough that when it goes wrong, you see it on screen and it just feels horrible. Obviously, this is just one movie, but they've got that sweet spot right away. And when you feel the dialogue, it all feels oddly natural. Nobody's trying to outdo themselves. And you just have those moments. And a big part maybe is because River Phoenix, like you said, had already had that big performance. At no point in this film does it feel like he's trying to steal a scene from anyone.
Not at all.
If anything, he actually kind of blends into the background more than you'd expect.
One of the prime examples you said about 20 minutes ago, that was a long narration.
Got there eventually.
But one of the prime examples of character reiterating for us, for the audience, is the bank teller. Where she's talking to Robert Redford. She said, so you sneak into buildings or you break into buildings to make sure people can't break into buildings. So they're trying to define what the title of Sneakers. And he says, well, it's a living. Well, not much of one. And she just frowns at the check she just cut him.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect. That's a 30-second throwaway line that explains the title of Sneakers. I mean,
it does. And also because the way she reacts, it also sums up the tone of the movie and the characters. Like if this was Ocean's 11 and you've got George Clooney walking into that bank, that woman's probably swooning over him. But instead, she's quite dismissive of him, despite the fact that he looks like Robert Redford. Like I know he's an older dude, but he's still super handsome. But there's still it's just like, this guy's a bit of a loser,
I think it's a good job though to they're ethical intruders. They're hired to penetrate systems, expose vulnerabilities, and prove where the security fails. I'd like to do a job like that.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Break in. Yeah,
because I didn't know. I quite liked the fact that there was that cold opening. Because I thought, these guys are basically like bank robbers. They've all got these skills and they do heists and stuff. And then you realize after the fact that no, they're working for someone else and it's just a setup. I was like, that was kind of cool. I didn't see that coming at all. Because like you said, I didn't know much about this movie, and I was looking into it. I was like, did this movie flop? This film was a big hit. It was budgeted like 12, 15. It made over 100 million. And I was like, was this just a bigger deal in America than it was over here? Because I can't remember this movie being a big deal. As I said, when you were, I was trying to guess the movie last week and you said Robert Redford. The only reason I remembered it is because it has quite a unique poster.
Yeah, the tear in the poster with all the characters underneath. Yeah. But I don't remember it being big over here in regards to I can't remember a cinema release of it or people going to the cinema for it. Yeah, okay, I was 9 at the time, but that doesn't matter. But the reason why I saw it again is one of the many ones that I rented from the video store when I was a kid. So
but you know what I mean? Just not only can I not remember it being a big thing in 92, wasn't it? 92. But when was the last time this was on TV? When was the last time? I know, right? This film isn't as good as Road to Perdition, but it feels like it's fallen into the same similar black hole where, when we did the Road to Perdition podcast, we're like, that came out in 2002. It was a big deal maybe at the time, and now nobody talks about it anymore, and you never see or hear about it at all. And you've got this fantastic movie, which just seems to have fallen into a black hole. It feels like this film did it, but just did it a lot quicker. Where it was just it came out, everyone was like, that's quite a good film, and then it disappeared. The difference between, say, this and Road to Perdition is that I can kind of get this. As good as this film is, for the reasons we've already mentioned, it's a film that just kind of pleasingly washes over you. Yeah. It's not like a film you suddenly rush out and say to all your friends, you have to watch this, or it sticks long in the memory. It's just kind of like a gentle, pleasant hug of a movie, and then it just kind of drifts away.
I mean, I hate the phrase "leave your brain at the door," but I'm not trying to say that when you watch this film you can just mong out to it. But what I am saying,
mong out to it—that's a throwback. You can't mong out to this film. That's a bus quote. Sneakers 4 stars. Can't mong out to this movie.
What I mean is, you can. You've said it perfectly. You can let it wash over you. You can just sit there and enjoy it. You turn your head away for a minute, come back. You haven't lost anything. It's not a convoluted plot. They're not throw in loads and loads and loads of stuff at you. As long as you know who Cosmo is and you know what's going on, you're fine.
Because, like you said, this film is actually, from a narrative perspective, quite complex, but it's never convoluted. And it's always easy to follow. It's kind of like one of those movies that makes you feel smarter than you should. Did you ever play the game The Witness? It was a Jonathan Blow game. It's a perfect example of that art. Obviously, it's a different art form being video games. But you play that game and it makes you feel really smart. But really what it's doing is always nudging you in the right direction. And it's the same with this film. It kind of feels plotty and like it might be quite smart, but because of the way the script works, it's actually relatively straightforward. It's not like, you don't have to have this movie explained to you at the end, do you? There's no point where you're just like, I'm not sure what happened there, despite all the... It is quite twisty-turny, but it's always very easy to follow and probably not quite as smart as it makes out. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, do you know as well? I was thinking because you're saying smart and all that. They were easy. They were quick to believe the enemy. Even what's his name says it, doesn't he? Portier. Like they just come in, say the NSA, and you just believe them, and you just give them all your information straight away. And it's like Jesus Christ, you're meant to be a clever man who is breaking into systems. You've been on the run, and the first thing out of your mouth is, "Oh yeah, that is me. Oh, you must be NSA." Like Jesus Christ.
That's one of the issues with a film when you have Robert Redford as the star, because even the way they set it up at the beginning, when you have that flashback to 1969, whereas like 1969 to 1992, I can't help but always do the maths. It's like if you made this film now, the flashback would be to 2003, and I'm just like, I don't like that one bit. But anyway, it's the fact that the start sets it up that maybe he's not the most reputable of characters. The fact that he trusts them means that he might not actually be the smartest of characters, but because it's Robert Redford and he has that easy charm, you just never question him because you're just like, oh, he must be the coolest, smartest guy in the room because the way he carries himself. It's like you almost can't, it's like trying to convince me that Robert Redford is in any way dumb. I'm just like, I can't, my brain won't go there because he looks and fucking sounds like Robert Redford.
Speaking of Robert Redford, whose side would you be on? Would you be on Cosmo's or Redford's side at the beginning of the film? Like, would you blame Robert? Because Cosmo tricked him to go off for pizza.
Cosmo's a bitch.
Yeah, well, Cosmo tricked him to go off for pizza. I appreciate that it was all Redford's idea.
Yeah.
But Kingsley tricked him to go off for pizza. So it's not his fault that he wasn't there.
No.
I know you've got the prison for 12 years, maybe... people believe you died in prison, great, whatever. You seem to have come out of it fine. So I don't.
Yeah, well, my issue is the suggestion that obviously, like, he didn't visit him in prison, but if
he's on the run,
he goes out for pizza and his friend gets caught in that instance. So you get Cosmo like banging on the window, like, "Help me, Marty, help me!" It's like, what's he supposed to do? Like, run in and help him with all the cops? It's just like, you've got to bounce in that situation. Also, like he's like I don't want to be mean on, you want to stick up for your friends and stuff, but in that moment you're like, this dude is toast. Like he's caught, like he is busted. What am I going to do? Just go in and get busted with him? It's like, oh, am I going to turn around and bounce the fuck out of you? Of course you're going to bounce.
I
don't care how good a friend you are.
I wonder if they did him for property damage as well. Because at that moment, all they did, they went into the college, it's fine. It looks like they had keys or whatever. It was open for them. They've hacked into the system, fine. But then when he's screaming for Marty, he smashes his way through the window with his feet. I'm thinking, oh, we got to get him for property damage as well.
Maybe
and
so.
If he was
maybe
that bad, why wasn't he there going, look, my accomplice is over there in the van?
Yeah. I don't know. I do like that opening sequence. I think it's vaguely silly, but I do like, the way they shoot it, where it has like a different aspect ratio and the color's drained out because it's quote unquote old timey. It's like, I think one of the best examples, even though the aspect ratio doesn't change, is like the opening sequence to Casino Royale, the black and white sequence, or even monochrome, I think you might call it. I was just like, some people get a bit up to you about that and they think it's like a cheap visual kind of ploy, but I think it looks great. And I actually quite like the opening sequence from an aesthetic perspective. The only thing that does is just, from a plot perspective, after you have that sequence, you're just waiting for Cosmo to return. Yeah. So when Ben Kingsley does show up and they almost make it this big reveal, you're just like, guys, I know. But again, it's not the kind of movie. This movie isn't trying to trick you. It's very much easing you along on the journey. This isn't Whitewater Rapids. This is like, gentle Blue Lagoon stuff where we're just going to ease you through the movie nice and easy. There's going to be a few twists, but don't worry. You won't have to think too hard. This is all about the charm of the characters and the pleasingly simplistic narrative. And it works for that reason.
Yeah.
But you imagine this film without the cast. I'm just like, I think this could be just like a completely whatever movie.
This was a straight to video at the time if it wasn't for the cast.
Yeah, and but
it could have been a Hallmark TV movie.
Yeah, it could have been.
It's the cast that elevated it. Absolutely,
it is. Don't get me wrong. Alden Robinson, who directed it, he also did. What was it?
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. Like, he does a solid job with the direction, and as I said, I think the James Horner score, which is quite unique actually, often sounds like the odder parts of like Zelda, Tears of Kingdom, and Breath of the Wild. I'm not sure if you ever played those games, but the shrines in particular have a very peculiar score. And even though it's not exactly the same, parts of this score did actually remind me of that. But it's just another part of, where you just like, the individual elements of this film are just better than they needed to be. It's like you're making cheese on toast, but you're just making it with the greatest ingredients of all time. We sourced bread from the Himalayan mountains and cheese from, I don't know where I'm going with this, but you see what I mean. It's just all the individual parts are just so much better than they need to be.
Yeah, I just thinking as well, you said individual parts. I'm trying to think if anything really stands out. Like you said, it was hard to pick a favorite scene. And it was hard to pick, well, there were no set pieces. It was just a lot of time in the van, just people talking. And you can imagine you're just in this van, it stinks. But you're just having a conversation, you're yelling at each other, and you've got the blind guy just doing what blind guys do. But it works so
like you
well.
Said, there are a lot of it's a movie rather than scenes of moments. It's like there's the locked door sequence with Poitier and Redford, and you know what the punchline's going to be when he's talking about the lock on the door, and he's like, "Oh, this is really complex," and you suddenly can't hear what Poitier is delivering. You're just seeing Robert Redford going, yes, 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 and he's just going to kick the door down. But because of the actors on screen, it's all quite charming. There are issues, of course, like Dan Aykroyd. I don't know what he was thinking. He goes for the full emo Spider-Man 3 haircut. I don't think he's pulling that off one bit. And the high and tight necklace.
Or is Tobey Maguire going for the Dan Aykroyd sneakers haircut?
Maybe that's the answer. I still like Dan Aykroyd in this film, but his look is distinct. And there is one scene in particular after they pull off that, like the initial heist, the what's they call it in this film, the Janix black box. The kind of, I guess, the MacGuffin of the film, when they steal it initially and they have like a bizarre party back at their house or their...
I love that. And the party is like, oh, let's play Scrabble while our daughter just sleeps somewhere. And we're going to
But they have the dance sequence at the start. The dance sequence is horrible. It's the worst sequence of this film by a mile.
Why is it just her dancing with all the guys? Why isn't like Poitier's wife getting involved?
I don't know. And it's just no one else is dancing. It's just her and a guy. And every single one of them is just being told, swing for the fucking fences. And it's one of the few parts of the film where it's just like, oh, that's a bit rough. That is. Yeah. That is a bit rough. But like I said, I like that. I like the scene with him being a PI. As I mentioned, this isn't like everything's like super put together. It's like when he comes in and what's her name, Mrs. Roscoff is there. I think it's Roscoff. She comes into the room when he's looking through Janek's belongings.
When he's trying to find the black box.
The black box, yeah. And she comes in
immediately, yeah.
Yeah, and it all feels kind of off the cuff and kind of scruffy, and I was like, I find that all quite charming, to be honest.
Well, that was like one of the better scenes when he's being fed lines again by superhero Whistler. Oh, actually, I think Poitier's feeding lines to Whistler.
Because
he's feeding lines to Redford.
That's a perfect example of like, we want them both in the scene. So they're just like, well, we'll have Poitier feed him the lines, but we'll have him doing via straight turn so they can both be in the sequence. Totally unnecessary, still kind of cool.
And I just love her as well. Chinese whispers. How Poitier says something, and then Whistler just goes, give him a blowjob. Be a beacon.
Such a dick move. Such a dick move.
But it's something we would do, isn't it? It's something we would, like, you would totally mess with your friend at that moment in time.
Yeah, even if you think it's a pretty serious situation, it's like it's low-hanging fruit, so to speak. But at that point, it is bright and breezy, and you do occasionally get like, when Kreese is the only one who realizes the severity of the situation. When they finally explain like the little black box, like the whole plot device thing, it's the ultimate code breaker. It all sounds quite complex when it's like, oh, it's a cryptography key that can get through any virtual defense. But really what it is, like they say, oh, it's an ultimate code breaker and it can get you into anything. And immediately, without saying anything else, you're just like, I can get why this might be super important. Even then, it's only Sidney Poitier who's just like, guys, you do realize that anyone in the world would kill us for this. This is how important it is.
I don't want to get involved too deep into the technology of this. Like we said, the technology's gone past. But I don't know, even back then, a mess of wires like that, and you can just type in a telephone number for like Fort Knox or whatever, and then you can access the system. When they typed in the telephone number for the radio, for air traffic control, and all of a sudden they see all the planes on the screen, I gotta call bullshit on this one. I'm sorry, I've got to call a bit of bullshit.
Yeah, it's the 90s, but what I do like about it is that they don't overdo it with the explanation.
No.
It's just, it works. Like, you think one of the problems, as you mentioned earlier, with those films, which have kind of aged out slightly, is they feel the need to over-explain computers to people. Because, back in the 90s, most people didn't have a computer, but they were computer movies. So they've got they need some kind of visualization. In this film, they just keep it super simple, enough that you just go, all right, that probably doesn't make any sense, but kind of who gives a shit? And the movie, that's the most important, is the movie doesn't really give a shit about the technology. It's just a means to an end. That's it.
I'd have to be a bit mad at Robert Redford, though, for like ruining my game of Scrabble, especially if I was winning.
Yeah, and that sequence is one of the more forced sequences in the film where you're just like, wait, so this like super high security, end of the world ultimate code breaker, it's named like via an anagram? Really? We're gonna fucking do that? So it's just like, all right, we need them to, kind of figure this out one way or another. So we're gonna have a Scrabble sequence, and that's why they're playing it at the party, and it all feels slightly forced. But then you watch it in the moment, and again, because of the cast, because of the dialogue, because of the script, it kind of wins me over. It's just like, all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I can see what you guys are doing. But the way they shoot, I'm invested in how this Scrabble game is going to work out, what the word's going to be, and the way they kind of I don't know why Strathern's wearing those crazy ass glasses. I get he's blind, but I think it is literally just for the reflection in that sequence when you see the code reflecting on his lens. But it works. It works, and it's just what could have been a throwaway moment. And again, even though this is an older film from a technological point of view, I think that benefits the narrative, because in so many sequences, if it was a modern film, the answer would be Google. Whereas because it has that analog aspect, it has a kind of visual kind of vocabulary that I think would be lacking from a modern equivalent, basically.
Yeah. Hey, last week, Invaders from Mars, right? You gave the kid shit for the way he runs. Like, there's no way about it. You beat up this kid. Like, if this kid was in front of us now, he'd be crying because
I'm appalled. I'm appalled that you didn't mention it. I'm appalled.
Did you see Ben Kingsley's trot in this? Towards the end of the film, when he finds out something's wrong and he trotted to his office, he's got his hands up marionette style. And he just trots to his office.
It's not a great run. He kind of gets away with it because he only has to do it once and briefly, unlike the kid from Invaders from Mars, who has to run like 17 times despite the fact that he can't run. But again, if we're talking about issues with this film,
hang on, sorry, before you go,
go for it.
I'm wondering if the run looked worse as well because they gave him a ponytail.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to mention. For the most part, this is a surprisingly timeless film. You kind of go with the technology, and I don't know if it's because it's a San Francisco film. It just looks cool more than anything else. Bright, breezy, all that jazz. You're aware you're watching a film from the 90s, but it doesn't feel overly 90s. And then Ben Kingsley shows up on screen, and he's got the suit, he's got the fucking 90s ponytail, and his evil lair is bananas. Like the shit, when Robert Redford wakes up because he's been kidnapped by his goons, and he wakes up on a bench in the middle of the room. The bench is insane. Then you see his sofas. I don't know what the hell they're made out of, mesh. And the room just keeps getting crazy and crazy. It has what can only be described as ultra 90s lighting. It's got crazy art. And at one point he says, we have to speak more quietly. Follow me. He then goes into a room within a room, and the chairs are made out of supercomputers.
So it's a bench.
Bananas.
It's a bench, right, around a Cray YMP, a multi-million-dollar supercomputer that was one of the world's fastest computers at the time the movie was made. So they've gone into this room. Well, I'm guessing it's like a server, so it's cooled.
Server room,
yeah. It's cooled. And they just, I don't know, they put a bench there just for fun. Well, you mentioned his office as well. What I do love is Robert Redford was explaining to his team about the office.
Mm-hmm.
So they've gone, right, well, we're going to keep staring. Now we've used David Strathairn's Daredevil powers. We know exactly where we are.
Yep.
We can assume that that's his office because you said he's got motion detectors, and he has to keep the lights on all the time for the motion detectors to work. So that's his office because of the light. Like, fuck me, the way you got that. Why is his office the only one with motion detectors?
Again, it's just certain things in this film. It's just we need to get people from A to B, and it occasionally just abandons common sense. And you kind of go with it or you don't. I think it's easy to go with because the film is so fun and, as mentioned, bright and breezy. But even the build-up to that, it's when those Cosmo's goons basically pull over Robert Redford and the Russian dude whose name I forget, like in that tunnel in the middle of San Francisco, and then they just shoot the Russian guy, and it's just like they just Gregor. It's just pure luck that no one else is in that what should be a really busy tunnel in the center of San Francisco. But they just say, "Oh, we're just going to absolutely get away with this." And then when they stick him, it's such a movie trope of sticking heroes in the back of a trunk, and they wake up and they're just super cool about it. They're just like, Out of Sight has a scene with George Clooney. He's in fairness, it's a very sexy sequence when he's in the back of a trunk with J-Lo. But they're all just like, "Oh, I have no problem with this whatsoever." I would be so much more like Chris Tucker in Jackie Brown if someone's just like, "Get in the trunk." Nah, man, I ain't getting no fucking trunk. I know he didn't have an option, but you know what I mean? He wakes up, he has a latch, he's just like, "Oh, I guess I'm in a trunk." No big deal. I'd be having an immediate fucking panic attack.
We're going to have to cover Out of Sight once soon, because the amount of times this fucking film gets mentioned is insane on this podcast.
Oh, Out of Sight, I know, it does come up a lot. Yeah, we really should have done that by now. That film's awesome. But anyway, moving on. So yeah, his evil lair is crazy. Then you get, I think one of the examples of why this movie works so well is actually right after that, you have the call with Abbott, Mr. Abbott, and they're trying to basically make a deal. And at this point, you don't know who Mr. Abbott is. Only you know exactly who Mr. Abbott is because James Earl Jones has the most distinctive voice of all time. But that sequence, and it comes back to, when I said about how this film is so much more effective because it's analog to a certain extent. That scene could just be a phone call. But because they're tracking him, tracking them, and they show it up on screen with the lines and the countries and how it goes from place to place. And at the same time, you've got Dan Aykroyd's crazy ass lie detector sitting on the side. You've got these visual representations of the tension in the scene. And it makes what should be a throwaway scene maybe one of the best in the movie. It's the same with, when you go back straight into magic powers, when he's trying to explain the journey he went on, instead of, again, on Google Maps, they're using audio systems and everything, and it should be a nothing scene, but instead it's really watchable. And this film is absolutely filled with those moments, but they are moments rather than scenes, I think.
Yeah, as you said before, this is all just a film of moments, isn't it? I want to go back, right? I want to mention what I said at the in my intro about the technology aging, but the movie not. So you're watching it today. It's like opening a drawer full of forgotten tech. You got the CRT monitors, floppy disks, giant modems, interfaces that look like they were designed in MS Paint. It's basically looking in my father-in-law's attic at this point. It's insane. It is all gloriously outdated, but I don't think any of it hurts the film. And the reason Sneakers still works for me, it's the ideas behind the tech are timeless: surveillance, encryption, data theft, digital vulnerability. These themes are even more relevant now than they were in 1992. The film kind of understands that technology is only ever as dangerous as the people who control it. If you swap the black box for a modern hacking device, the story barely changes. The paranoia is still lands, the stakes still matter, and the characters still feel like the kind of people who could break into anything, anywhere, at any time. It's not just a tech thriller, it's a human thriller wearing a tech jacket. I think that's why it all stands on its own. Sorry, I've said a lot of shit there. Then.
No, and I fundamentally agree with all of that. It's the same with if you go back and watch a James Bond film, it's obviously the older James Bond films have older style gadgets, but again, it's all about being a means to an end. It doesn't ruin the film. It doesn't take you out of it. It's just it's just a movie set in the 90s rather than feeling like a 90s movie. We've talked about this before where some films you're just that is just a 90s movie back to front, or an 80s movie because the way it's shot, the way it feels. Whereas again, this film, the way it's shot, the way it's acted, it feels surprisingly timeless, and it just feels like a film that happens to be set in the 90s. But if you told me if I didn't know all the actors, and you said this was made in 2012, but it was set in the 90s, I'd kind of buy into it. And it's the same but it doesn't overdo anything. It other than the aforementioned Ben Kingsley stuff, which feels mega 90s, there's no escaping that. It's the same with the location work. This is a San Francisco movie, and it has a few sequences like when Robert Redford gets dropped off, and they're clearly at the pier, and you can see the Golden Gate Bridge in the background, all that jazz. But for the most part, it's not hitting you over the head with its San Francisco-ness of it all. It's just the city doesn't necessarily feel like a character. It's just the location, and that's absolutely fine sometimes.
At the end of the film, when they all meet Mr. Abbott, James Earl Jones, and they are talking to him, and they all realize it's the golden ticket, they can get what they want.
And they can make their demands, basically.
Yeah. Who had the better demand? That's what I want to know.
Well, at that point, right, the first one I want to talk about is River Phoenix and asking for that girl's phone number. It shouldn't work. It is kind of charming, but at that point, and one of the issues with this film is I don't know what River Phoenix's character really is. I'm like, does he have special needs or is he just a horny nerd?
So I
think it's the latter, but it's borderline.
He's like the young Redford. They've I think it said that they caught him breaking into something. So
He's
Redford's taking
like Redford
no. What I mean is not Redford himself. Redford character, the Martin character.
Yeah.
He's a younger version of Martin. He was actually caught by the team, the sneakers team, and instead of sending him to jail or whatever, they hired him. But all he wants randomly, this entire thing is, I just want love. I want somebody like Liz. So I'm going to go for the first female in the room I can see. Like if there was two female agents, I honestly think he probably eeny, meeny, miny, mo and say, can I have her number?
Oh, can I have one of their numbers? Whoever's most willing kind of thing. Again, because it's River Phoenix, he kind of gets away with it, but I find his character surprised. Like of all of the kind of core cast members, I find his the slightest and the least kind of like, I don't find him particularly relatable or even massively likable. He's fine. And he does have one of the great moments in the film. You know, we talked about the difference between this and say Mission Impossible, Oceans and stuff and how it's not cool. It's when Cosmo has the drop on Martin and Martin says, now, what's his name? River Phoenix's character? Carl? Is it Carl? Carl. It's like, now Carl. And then he eventually jumps down through the roof onto him. And he's like, what was up with the delay? He's like, dude, you don't know how dangerous that was. That was a big deal. And it is, if you stop and think about it. If someone said, oh, jump through the roof onto that guy with a gun, you're just like, I'm not sure if I'm cut out for this. And the whole point is they're not. This isn't their world. They're good at what they do, but they're in over their heads with the exception of maybe Kreese, who I do enjoy the fact that he gets his Mr. Tibbs moment. He's always quite nice, the cynic, the realist in the film. But then, the sequence with the truck and he's, you motherfuckers messing me and I'll split your head. I was like, oh shit, Mr. Tibbs, you ain't fucking around, man.
No. Go back to my original question because I asked.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, okay. I knew as soon as I asked her, I said, "You're not going to answer, and you're going to go on a fucking tirade."
No, which was my favorite one of the demands.
It's not so much favorite, but which one would you pick? I'd like to think that the holiday one sounds good. Yeah. Then I realized all he's asked for is the ticket. You will buy me a first-class ticket for all of these locations. So I still have to find the hotel. I still have to find spending.
Winnebago's a better bet at this point. If it's like a brand new Winnebago, that's got to be worth like, if we're going by modern standards, that's got to be what, like 40, 50 grand easy?
But like Robert Redford was like, you clear my record. It's fine. So does he now keep the name Bishop or does he go back to his original name? Yeah, and if he does, he doesn't really have any employment history. Yeah,
I guess he can just keep his new name, but he doesn't have to worry about somebody looking up he's not living in that fear, I suppose, of constantly being found out. But I'm going to go with the Winnebago just because it's a bit more fun. I'm not sure about the burgundy interior that he requests, but as much fun as obviously you want to travel from a purely financial perspective, if you need a new vehicle and a Winnebago's your thing, he's swinging for the fences a little bit there. Yeah. That's a pretty big ask.
You're going to get something. Peace on earth, goodwill to all men is probably a bit much to ask for, but even trying is a bit much. Yeah.
It's like the last sequence in the film, which is like a throwback to the earlier point when they're obviously this whole idea that the idealists, and that's Cosmo and Marty, and they're breaking into these systems. And then the last sequence when they come up on screen and basically, the Republicans have had their money taken away. But, all these kind of good causes have had like an anonymous, what's the word? Donations. Thank you very much. It's kind of like a nice little boat, kind of not on the end of the film, but also feels a little bit, I don't know, vanilla.
What did you think as well of Donald Logue's first ever on-screen role?
Who's he playing?
He was the Russian who actually created the black box.
Oh yeah, he's fine. He's fine.
It was mad just seeing him from like 1992 and just seeing because he's young, but he also looks 70 years of age. I don't know what it was about. I don't know if it was the hair that aged him or the weird suit.
I think
or
it's
the fact that the woman that was in love with him looked to be twice his age as well.
Yeah, Dr. Roscoe. That sequence is always is quite weird because I wouldn't trust any woman who makes those kind of noises as soon as she gets into a room. It's all a little bit too erotic.
Yeah.
And it is part of the tone. It's like, it's kind of throwaway at times. It's a little bit more serious at others. It pulls it off for the most part. But occasionally there are moments like that where it kind of goes a little bit too far. It suddenly feels like you're watching a flat out comedy. I just don't feel like people would react like that in a way at all, but you're trying to elicit a reaction from the core cast members, which is what you get. But yeah, his whole performance is kind of bizarre, but it's short-lived, so it doesn't really matter, I suppose.
No, they killed him off screen as well, didn't they? So it was just
yeah. It's kind of like what's his name who shows up at the end? What's the nerd who ends up on the date with Liz?
Stephen Tobolowsky.
Yeah. It's like. Yeah. I mean, he gets short shrift. That whole sequence is quite bizarre where it's just like, oh, look, he's a nerd. He doesn't know how to be around women. He takes it to that bizarre restaurant with the song playing. I don't know what the hell they were going for there.
That breakfast line was creepy as fuck as well.
Super creepy, dude.
Yeah.
I wasn't, again, it kind of lends itself to the Mission Impossible thing. It's like, you have this geeky rube who has to, can't be in the room. We're going to use his card, but he needs to be somewhere else. And instead of being sick in a toilet, he's off on a date with Liz. But yeah, he's like this total, like, confidence-free geek who doesn't know how to be around women. But the moment that he gets kind of like a hint that she might be, like, she isn't who she says she is, he suddenly becomes this like total like badass. He's like dragging her by her arm and just becomes like really mean.
She's letting him do it as well.
Yeah, like, Liz seems too tough for that. Like she'd be like, get fucked. And then even when he gets there, it's quite bizarre. Like, all the bad guys just happen to be in the office in the middle of the night.
That office is full. Completely like there's more than one security guard, which is okay. That's fine. Usually in these films, it's one security guard just roaming the halls. Mm-hmm. Then you've got, like I said, so many men in there, like at midnight. It's
Timothy Busfield and Eddie Jones, who play the two quote-unquote NSA agents, but actually Cosmo's goons. They're both there in the middle of the night for no reason whatsoever. Cosmo's there.
I think Cosmo lives there.
He probably does just live there, in fairness.
Yeah, he's got like an apartment somewhere.
But that whole sequence is weird because she gets dragged in. You've got to think they've got to be mega paranoid because of what they're doing. And he's like, listen, she isn't who she says she is. But then immediately they're just like, oh, this seems to be a misunderstanding. You can go. Until Cosmo's saying like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
you met on a dating app. No, you're far too hot for him.
That's what I wanted to say. He dropped low-key. Well, it wasn't even low-key. He dropped shade on Stephen Tobolowsky. You're telling me a computer matched her with him? Not in your fucking life.
Like he's in the background.
He's fugly and she's fucking smoking. There's no way that happened. Let me do my little nerdy run to the office.
Yeah. If you're Dr. Werner in that sequence, you're like, whoa, dude, I know you're the boss, but you throw me into the fucking bus there, dude.
Also, if you got a super high-tech office, usually there's not an office next door to yours.
Yeah,
you're on the floor on your own. It's just a hallway or something. There's no random guy who works on toys next to your office. That seems a bit much.
Yeah. It's kind of like, is this like a mega layer, or it's almost like it's not quite at this level. But remember the lab in Gremlins 2, where you're just like, wait, is that just next to Toys R Us and the Gap? It's so strange that you're just like bending nature to your will next door to like the local cinema. It's so bizarre. It's kind of the same with this. Like you say, it's like, it's not really that far out in the sticks, and other people seem to be working in this building. You think you might put your evil there a little bit more out the way, but obviously you wanted to be able to commute in that of San Francisco, so it is what it is, I suppose. Anything else to add on this one before we move on to favorite scene? You've already done Rob Take, haven't you? Or do you have another?
I've got another Rob Take.
All right, go for it, buddy.
Right, so it was when you said he did his Mr. Tibbs line.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not sure I really needed the unnecessary racism. Just calling Sidney Poitier midnight. It seemed like one of those moments that just landed wrong for me. Like,
it was a bit odd, I guess, but it was like, I get what they're going for. They're trying to like set him off. This guy who's always been on the edge. And
you can set him off by holding a gun at him anyway. But to just out of the blue, just go, come on, midnight. I don't know. It's not clever. It doesn't build any character. It's just there, and it really sticks out in a film that is
It does.
otherwise pretty warm and good natured. I don't know if I needed the real like the unnecessary
Know what you
racism on
mean,
that.
and it's weird because some people argue it's a lower key racial remark, but
Yeah.
because it's unique, it makes it stand out more. Like if it was one you'd heard a million times, because he calls it midnight, you're like, holy shit!
Yeah.
Like you almost like you don't realize it at first. You go like, wait a minute, what the fuck just happened? Is he just throwing a fucking racist remark at Sidney Poitier? You son of a bitch! So here's that moment, but no. I think they wanted to elicit and justify a strong reaction from Sidney Poitier to have his badass moments. But I agree with you; they've probably gone slightly overboard there.
Yeah, he could have done it. He could have had that badass moment anyway, because it takes nothing away from him going, do you know why I left the CIA? Because of my temper. Let me do some martial arts.
Yeah, they've
shit.
already built it up. Like he's got it in him. You probably don't need the racism. Yeah, that's fair enough.
That's it. That's
fair enough. Yeah, favorite scenes, as we mentioned, it's a bit of a tricky one because there aren't too many traditionally memorable scenes. But it's one I mentioned earlier. I think it is the call with Mr. Abbott. It's like you said, I know the voice, so straight away I'm just like, oh, James Earl Jones is showing up later. That's kind of cool. But like you said, having the polygraph and the visual representation of the race against time, it just adds to the drama. And I think that sequence sums up the film because you have all these characters, they all have something to do, they all have a moment. It's still relatively low key, but in a lesser film, it would just be a nothing scene. And this movie, it works. So I'll go with that one.
It does work, but then you've got the guy that can't see watching the monitor to see how close he is.
I know
how close he is to finding him. Like it's all good, it's all tense, it's all that, and you just got. And I know he's got like a keyboard thing on the bottom, and it's like a braille reader, but it's not showing that. It's just showing the monitor, and then showing David Strathern going.
Yeah, you.
5 seconds.
As we said, you have to just accept that he's a superhero. Like that. That's one of the major issues of the film. Is like Ben Kingsley is a villain from a different movie, and Strathern has magic powers. Those are the two major issues of this film.
For me, it's more like an act than it is a scene. The last act of the film is controlled chaos in the best way. You have the team improvising their way through a high security building, Redford bluffing past guards, Strathern guiding them with sonar level precision. It's the perfect blend of tension and comedy. It's the moment the film fully becomes the clever, character driven heist movie that it's been building towards. So I kind of like the last, final act, maybe.
No, it is almost a final. It is almost a final act, like the whole Playtronics sequence. It is a number of sequences that make up, like you say, the final act of the film. And even when you have the Cosmo speech at the end, and you realize basically he's just jealous. Like that's fundamentally what's driving. He's just jealous of Martin. And then of course you look over at Martin as Robert Redford. You're like, yeah, I get it. He's not just handsome, but he's so cool as well. But he has that speech at the end about war being about like it's over information now, and all that stuff feels very pertinent and still very accurate in 2026. So again, even though the technology behind it is dated, the ideas that drive the movie again still feel relevant, and you get that right through to the end of the film. But I think, like you said, it is more of an act than a scene. But I like if I wasn't picking the bit I did, it probably would be the same thing. That whole big showdown at the end of the film. Oscar season, in which we hand out 3 Oscars and 3 Razzies in categories of our choosing. So the Oscar for best hair goes to Robert Redford. Can't do a Robert Redford movie without mentioning his hair. Absolutely fantastic. He had that barnet right through until he died. It still looked great in his 80s.
Is there going to be a Razzie for worst hair by any chance?
Oh, there is, yeah. That's in the post. The Oscar for Best Chemistry goes to Redford and anyone or anything on screen with Redford. I think he's that good in this film. And I was going to say the Oscar for Most Overqualified Cast goes to Sneakers. But I'll actually go and say the Oscar for Worst Dance Sequence in an otherwise great movie goes to Sneakers and the party sequence. I know we've already mentioned it, but you need to watch it. It is a truly horrible scene in a great film. It's like it's so bad that it is memorable, like to the point where I'm like, I could give it a Razzie, but I want to give it an Oscar because it's so memorable.
That feels like a double negative, doesn't it? The Oscar for the worst.
It is a little bit, but I had a few more Razzies that I wanted to add down, so it's ended up in the Oscars. But kind of forced it.
The Oscar for the best ensemble cast goes to the entire team.
There we go.
Yeah. The Oscar for the best tech that shouldn't work but somehow does is the black box.
Yeah, it's basically like Jen in the IT Crowd. Do you ever watch the IT Crowd?
Yeah.
And they have the whole sequence with the internet, and it's just a box. That's basically what this is. It's just a box. It's fine. It's a MacGuffin. Get on with it.
And the Oscar for the best scene stealer does go to David Strathern.
Yeah. Like you said, he's not the one you would immediately pick out when you see the cast.
Yeah.
But outside of Redford, he absolutely steals the film. The Razzie for worst hair in a rare shared award between Dan Aykroyd's ill-advised curtains and Ben Kingsley's decidedly dodgy ponytail. So, sir, you are going to get the deciding vote. Will it go to Dan Aykroyd's curtains?
It's the ponytail.
It's probably the ponytail.
Dan Aykroyd's curtains didn't really offend me much, but the ponytail, there's something about a guy, and 80s and 90s, it was the thing, but something about a guy pulling their hair taut and like pulling all your skin at the face tight and then just wrapping it in a ponytail. It just doesn't work for me.
It's weird because
it's the 90s equivalent of what we have now. I don't know if it happens now, a man bun. I can't do man buns either.
No. Well, it's one of those things because even though a lot of this film does feel quite familiar in terms of its tropes, etc., it doesn't necessarily feel overly cliched throughout, except for the cliched evil fucking haircut with Ben Kingsley. He's the only thing in this film which feels genuinely cliched, and the haircut is a big part of that. So he probably is the correct winner. The Razzie for most 90s thing in an otherwise oddly timeless movie goes to Kingsley's evil lair office. We mentioned it early. It's outrageously 90s, and it just doesn't belong in this movie. Despite the fact that the movie is set in the 90s, yes, I get that, but everything else feels cool and of a time, whereas that just feels like if you were trying to if you were showing someone the idea of what the 80s look like, you'd have like neon and shit everywhere.
Yeah.
But in reality, that's not what the 80s necessarily look like. This is like that concept of the early 90s where everything kind of looked like an arcade. It's not far from like the lair from... the foot soldier lair from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990. Yeah. Absolute nonsense. And the Razzie for clumsy issues of Scrabble and a totally unnecessary anagram goes to, that scene in this movie. Those are the Razzies.
So for me, sorry, I'm doing three things at once here. The Razzie for I've lost it. Oh, the worst user interface goes to every computer in the film.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
The Razzie for the worst security system is Cosmo's headquarters.
Yeah, they can't. It's like I can't decide if it's brilliant or rubbish. Bit of both, maybe.
And the Razzie for the worst alias has to go to Mr. Abbott.
Mr. Abbott, maybe, or Mother's not an alias; it's just a nickname. So we'll go. Yeah. That is correct.
Well, I mean, if you say it loud, not loud. If you say it like it's a butt.
Mr. Abbott.
Mr. Abbott. He's just a butt. Yeah.
Is it an alias or is that just his name?
I don't know. It's
because I think at the start they had that whole thing with a polygraph thing where they're like, is he telling the truth? And up until he says, we'll keep you safe, everything else is true. So I think maybe he is just Mr. Butt. Anyway, any alternative titles for this film?
We had a few randomly. I didn't think we'd get many for this, but we do have some. Right, in Argentina, it's Heroes by Chance.
Maybe.
Yeah. Austria, Sneakers, The Silent Ones. That seems like a fart.
Yeah, that's not good.
Brazil, Breach of Confidentiality. Czech Republic, Snoopers. Estonia, Handymen.
No, it feels like a very different movie.
Yeah. France, The Experts.
No.
Greece, The Silent.
No, definitely not.
Italy, The Lords of the Scam.
No, it's too overwrought.
Lithuania, Sophisticated Thieves.
That's not too bad.
Mexico, Random Heroes.
No, it's not good.
Poland, Burglars.
No, they're not really. That's not really their MO. They kind of forced into it, but that's not really what they do.
Romania, Black Box.
No, it sounds like an airplane disaster movie.
Serbia, Sniffer.
Oh, absolutely not Serbia, you dirty boys.
Slovakia, Rails.
Why is Sniffer? Why does that sound dirty, or is that just me? Yeah. It does, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Slovakia, Rails.
No.
Slovenia, Spitz with a Z on the end.
I don't get it.
No. Taiwan, Divine Ghosts and Elite Soldiers.
I mean, fantastic. Nonsensical, but fantastic.
And finally, Turkey, Ciphers.
Which isn't terrible, which is one of the bad ones. But I think we'll stick with Sneakers, yeah?
Yeah, Sneakers is the better one.
Any facts for this film?
Yeah, when Martin and Cosmo attempt their initial prank at the beginning of the movie, the facade building scene is the famous Hill Valley Clock Tower from Back to the Future.
I did not notice that at all. That is so awesome.
Bernard Abbott was named after Robert Abbott, a charismatic technical consultant for this movie. In addition to being about the same age and complexion as Jones, Bob designed the first timeshare and multi-user
The
operating system.
same complexion as Jones. That feels like the complete opposite of calling someone midnight, like a really sneaky. Like, how do I say this in a nice way? He has the same complexion. So you're saying he's black?
Yeah.
That's what the same complexion, sure.
Bob designed the first time-sharing multi-user operating system for the Control Data Corporation, the CDC 6600, the predecessor of the Cray YMP, which was seen in this movie. He is also often referred to as the father of information security by seasoned veterans of the computing industry. Okay, so he was named after Robert Abbott, so me giving him a Razzie for having a name Abbott means that it's actually his name, and I do apologize.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Still sounds like a butt.
Yeah, what else have we got here? Dan Aykroyd wears a t-shirt bearing the name Alika's Attic. It's a band formed by River Phoenix.
Oh, yeah. I read about that recently. I don't know. I think it was maybe because his name came up because, we were covering this in the movie. And I noticed that he was in a band. I was just like, I had no idea he was in a band. And so,
the night he died, he played. So the night he died, he played in the club that was owned by Johnny Depp. His band played.
Not the Cobra Room. It's something like that, isn't it?
Yeah. And I can't remember the name of it, but he did say, I think he said something along the lines of, I think I'm ODing. And they went, if you're ODing, you wouldn't be awake. And then 30 seconds later or minutes later, he died.
Viper Rooms. That was it, sorry. Cobra Rooms.
Close.
Yeah, I guess.
To prevent the project from being thought of as a kids' movie, Phil Alden Robinson intentionally added profanity to the script.
Yeah, there's a few bits knocking around. Yeah. I don't think it ever feels like a kid's film, though.
Robert Redford's jacket is the same one he wore in The Natural.
It's a cool jacket. I've got a similar one. I like that baseball style jacket. And every so often I look at myself, I'm like, am I too old for this? And I'm like, Robert Redford's wearing one in his 50s. If I'm like, yeah, but dude, you don't look like Robert Redford. So it's still tricky. But yeah, he looks cool.
So Martin avoids being arrested because he is out getting pizza. In 3 Days of the Condor from 1975, Joseph Turner, Robert Redford, avoids getting murdered because he's out getting sandwiches. So he's always out getting food.
Oh, yeah. Well, man into my own heart.
When breaking into Cosmo's office, Martin uses a Ronco pocket fisherman to lower a needed high-tech device.
Brilliant. We're getting a little bit fast and loose with the facts now.
The warehouse set in which the characters are having a party after getting a device is modelled on the set of the warehouse party in The Conversation from 1974.
That's kind of cool, yeah. And in fairness, I know we said the party was kind of lame, but the warehouse is pretty dope.
I mean, you're talking about fast and loose with facts. 2 and 2 made 7. The access code entered at the beginning of the movie ends in 1138, most likely in reference to George Lucas's first movie, THX 1138.
Maybe. Yeah, we're struggling now. We're struggling. Like you said, some movies, we look at this and we're like, there are 1,000 facts, we'll handpick a few. Other films, you get like 2 or 3 and you're just like, all right, we're struggling now. We are struggling.
Yeah.
Is that it? We done?
Both Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Jones were in Trading Places. Boom.
Yeah, we're done. Hunt the Future, so this way, question, remake, sequel, Let It Die, will Leave Well Alone. Super easy. Just leave well alone. You are not getting a cast like this again for the same kind of script. There's just no way. I was trying to think, is there any actor, if we go on the assumption that a big part of this, in terms of getting the cast together, is because Redford was attached and he's gone out. It's like, do you want to be in a movie with me? I was just like, dude, it's Robert Redford.
Yeah.
Who in 2026 has the same kind of pull? The only ones I can really think of were maybe Leonardo DiCaprio, if he made a movie like this. There'd obviously be a lot of interest. And I know obviously there's the Mission Impossible thing, but I still think Cruise would have a big draw as well. I don't think there's many others, unless I'm missing anyone obvious.
It's hard, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, as much... The Rock, maybe a couple of years ago, probably.
Not now. And I still don't think there's that whole... you can get people, he's famous and is going to make money. But I think with Redford, and I'm sure everybody wants to make money. You mentioned the fact that River Phoenix was there for a paycheck. But a lot of people, because of his legacy and his legend, you're like, I want to work with Robert Redford specifically. Even if there was no pay involved, I just want to be in a movie with Robert Redford. I'm just thinking who would have that kind of draw now. But anyway, like I said, maybe Leo, maybe Cruise, who knows? But like I said, the point is leave well alone because it's just not happening. It would just end up with a whatever film with a whatever cast and it just wouldn't be the same. And also, as we've mentioned numerous times during this podcast, despite this hack, this film has aged wonderfully and looks really good. So no need.
Yeah, no, I agree. Leave well alone. It's a film of its time. I did say that you could probably, like, if you did a hacking device, you could do it now, and it kind of fits for everything that's going on now. But this kind of film with this kind of cast, you're not going to get it again.
You're just not going to get it. You're not going to get Redford, Poitier, River Phoenix, all that jazz. Make a change. So if you're going to make one change to make this movie better, well, initially I was going to go with River Phoenix, just give him a bit more character. He's kind of weird, but I'm never quite sure what his role is in the film. But in reality, I would just tone down Ben Kingsley in this film. The whole aesthetic, his performance, and now you've mentioned his running. I can't unsee that. I'm just not convinced it works with the rest of the film. It's not terrible, but there's not many things to dislike about this film. It's just a very likable movie. But the one thing that stood out to me is that incredibly 90s aesthetic, the ponytail. So yeah, just everything about Ben Kingsley, just take it down a few notches, I think.
For me, it was give Cosmo a clearer motivation. Cosmo's plan is fascinating, but it's muddy. He wants to destabilize global systems, but he also wants to reconnect with Redford, like their old uni mates who drifted apart. I think tightening his ideology or leaning harder into the personal grudge would have sharpened the emotional stakes.
I agree with you. Like, at one point when he's talking to me, he's just like, wait, have you gone insane? Almost as if to like justify his actions because they are unjustifiable. It's kind of hints at like he's obviously lost his way in prison, but they don't do it, to your point exactly, they don't do enough to explain him. But I mean, between the two of us, the answer is Cosmo, one way or another, whether it be the aesthetic or the narrative surrounding him. That needed a bit of work, and it's a minor issue in an otherwise very enjoyable film, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of video games, unsurprisingly, there wasn't a Sneakers video game back in 1992. I keep saying 92, it was 92, right?
92, yeah.
Yeah, 92.
Yeah, because you made a big deal of me picking 92 films the past couple.
Yeah, I think I should, just when I was doing the research, somebody said 91, and I was suddenly concerned, like, oh, maybe it was released in 91 in America and 92 over here, because I know it seems weird to modern viewers, but that used to happen quite regularly. There used to be like a gap between movies.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was released 92 over here. But I was like, maybe Payday 2, but without the violence. But the reality is, and I think you've chosen this game before, I was thinking like a 5-player version of Way Out by Hazelight, the studio most famous for Split Fiction and all. And what was the other game they did?
It Takes Two.
It
Playing
Takes
that
Two.
Currently.
There we go.
Love that game.
I still haven't played it, but you see what I mean in terms of like you have multiple characters, they all have to work together to get a job done. It's more low key, nobody's necessarily blowing shit up. It's getting things done in a timely manner, basically. So I'd go with that, I think.
For me, I found a game that I haven't played, but it did seem to fit pretty well. It's called Invisible Ink.
Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was released a few years ago, yeah?
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah.
So the player acts as the remote operator for an espionage agency that has come under attack from multinational companies. But it's like a turn-based system. So you can use all your team's different
So
traits.
I'm still just upset when I'm like, oh, that was released a few years ago, and you said yes, and then you said 2015. I was just like, I was 11 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I hate time.
Yeah, time's not fun. But Invisible Ink seems to fit for me, so I'd probably go with that one.
That's a good shout. Good shout. In terms of IMDb, so this is where we pick a random 10-star and 1-star review. But before we do that, I try and guess how many written reviews there are for this film. Now, this is really like, I always think these are the trickiest ones because I have no concept of how popular this film is. I'm convinced this movie has dropped off the face of the earth. Who knows if it's a bigger thing in America and it's still shown every fucking Christmas. Is it over 100?
It is over 100, yes.
Under 200, I'm guessing.
Yes, under 200.
I'm going to go for 131.
179.
Okay, that's more than I thought. But, I thought it'd be in that kind of ballpark at least.
Tens?
So 179, you say, yeah?
Yep.
79. How many 10 stars? I think it'd be quite a few. I think a lot of people really like this film. I'm going to go with 31.
Oh, dude, 41.
Oh, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. But yeah, that feels about right. I can imagine a lot of people really liking this film.
This is a rarity for us. This was written in April of 2026.
No, very recent.
Yeah.
So people are still watching this film, apparently, which is good for our podcast, of course.
It's titled "It Stands the Test of Time." I love this movie. The fantastic ensemble cast, and I've enjoyed it every time I watched it. Around 12 times since it came out. Robert Redford is amazing. Mary McDonnell is so lovely. Sidney Poitier lends this gravitas, and River Phoenix, who died far too young, does a wonderful job. Add in Dan Aykroyd and Ben Kingsley. I don't understand why this isn't rated 9 out of 10. It's a great story too. It's not high theatre, but it's smart, engaging, and super entertaining. Love.
I agree with all of that. I think he's absolutely nailed it. It's like, it's not kind of like highbrow stuff, but the cast is all amazing. Everyone's doing their part. Just a super watchable film. 1-star reviews. Now, this is who the fuck is giving this film 1 star? Like we said, like this feels like a hug. I'm not saying it has to be your favorite film. I'm not saying you have to give it 10 out of 10. But to give a film like this 1 feels just like, God, what is wrong with you? I'm going to go with 4.
2.
2. Better. Yeah.
Written in April of 2018.
Okay.
Titled Painful to Watch in 2018.
Fair enough.
Boring. Click, control, and shift and enter to steal money from bank movie. It's simplified for the general population. But if you have any idea how tech works, the script will be hard to swallow. If you work in IT field, you'll probably suffer...
we go. This explains it now. Here we go.
You'll probably suffer minor nervous breakdown while watching this movie. I don't care if you work in tech. It's 2018, dude. This is 1992. Get over yourself.
The thing is, I don't want to be overly critical, although I am, because
I do.
I was like, how could anyone give this 1? I was like, oh yeah, because he's a fucking boff. And the tech doesn't make any sense. And this is, don't get me wrong, this is dumbed down for general. I was like, that's the vibe of the film, but whatever. But when my wife, who's a scientist, sees one of the first movies we ever went to see in the cinema was Ang Lee's Hulk, which of course a lot of people had issues with.
Yeah.
Early in the film, there was a lab sequence which upset her so much that she said she couldn't even pay attention to the rest of the film. So it does happen.
Yeah, no, my wife did anything medical, because my wife used to do St. John's ambulance and stuff. So anything like that, that's not how you do CPR. That's not how you administer
and
that.
You get caught.
She will sit there and I'm like, just let it go.
See, there's people with real jobs where I'm watching a movie. I'm just like, nobody plays a video game like that. I'm like, oh, fucking get over yourself.
You're right, saying let it go. But then when I see people playing PlayStation and the light isn't on in the controller, or you're playing Xbox with a PS5 controller,
they keep pressing the buttons in just
the shoulder buttons. Why are you tapping the shoulder buttons?
Yeah. No, you just there is no game which would require you to press the button. They've just never played a video game in their life. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, he's a psycho, but at least he has an excuse for it, I suppose. Yeah. In terms of our own scores and recommendations, I'm sure people can see where this is going. This was the easiest of easiest. It is such a 4-star film, and it is incredibly easy to recommend, to the point where, like I said, I'd never seen it before. A couple of guys in work were just like, I mentioned I was watching Sneakers. They'd never heard of it. I will go in and say, if you have the opportunity, you should absolutely watch this film, because it's hard to imagine, unless you're a tech nerd, you're going to get upset about it. There's any way you're not going to take at least a little bit of enjoyment out of this film. So it's a 4 and a very easy yes as far as a recommendation goes from me.
For me, it's a 4 as well. It was so close to a 5, but I've got to give it a 4.
I don't think it ever aims for 5. That's the thing. No. I think it wants to be just a really good 4-star film, and it knocks out the park, so it's fine.
And yes, I would recommend it. I think it's so fun to watch, to see the cast together. I highly recommend it.
Cool. Well, we're basically in full agreement. Before we get to next week's choice, do you have the usual quiz for me?
Yeah, I got some poor man's toes for you, so I got 3 as usual.
Yeah.
Right. So number 1.
Okay, here we go.
I'm taking a bit of a swing on this one, so I do apologize.
No, artistic liberties are being taken, are they?
Yes. A time-traveling cyborg hunts the future leader of a human resistance, whilst a hacker discovers that reality itself is a simulated prison controlled by machines.
Terminatrix?
The Terminatrix.
I don't like Terminatrix. Sounds like it might be a kind of like Channel 5 late night porn movie.
Or it's an asylum movie.
Yeah, maybe. Terminatrix. There's just something slightly odd about that. But no, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
I don't know if you'll get the next one, so I do apologize. You'll get the first one.
Okay.
But the second one is a film that has totally slipped. Anyway, right. A disfigured vigilante... Sorry, that's not again. A disfigured vigilante scientist wages war from the shadows, whilst a traumatized Marine returns home, struggling to piece together what happened during a violent incident overseas.
Okay, so a disfigured... What was the first part again?
A disfigured vigilante scientist wages war from the shadows.
A disfigured vigilante...
We have...
talked
about this film. We haven't. We want to. We never pick it for some reason. We have.
I was thinking it might be Sam Raimi's Shadow Man.
No, not Shadow Man.
What are we talking about?
You're there.
Dark Man.
Yeah, Dark Man's right.
So Dark Man, and the second part again. Sorry, Shadow Man. Fuck. How many times have I seen Dark? And how? That's another film. Like, how have we not done Dark Man?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's probably because I said Shadow, so it just went into your mind.
Yeah.
But anyway, a traumatized Marine.
Yeah.
Returns home, struggling to piece together what happened during a violent incident overseas.
Shadow Man on Fire?
Well, it's Darkman again, but
Oh, sorry, Dark Man on Fire?
no, we've already
No.
done that. A traumatized Marine returns
Yeah, it
home.
didn't really add
Yeah.
up. I was taking a bit of a Man of War, no.
I don't know. This
Okay, you
film
got
is...
to tell me, yeah.
So it's Darkman Down.
Oh, okay.
Man Down is a Shia LaBeouf film from 2015 with Jai Courtney, where he's a traumatized Marine who comes home.
Yeah, I've not seen that film. So
No,
yeah,
I've not seen it, but yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
fair enough. You have to make it work. It's the nature of the game. So I can live with that one.
And finally, an FBI agent infiltrates a gang of extreme sports criminals.
So literally, even before you said the rest, my head in me went, "I am an FBI agent." Sorry, carry on.
That's okay. So you've got the first one.
Yeah, Point
Whilst
Break.
a man's wife mysteriously disappears on a remote highway, forcing him into a desperate fight against a
Kurt
violent...
Russell.
Yep, Kurt Russell.
Point Breaking.
Oh, not breaking. Point
Breakdown. Point Breakdown.
Point Breakdown.
Again, another film we probably should have done in this podcast.
We should have, yes.
I like that film.
Yeah, I like that film.
Did we do what was the one you did with Kurt Russell and Executive Decision?
We haven't done Executive Decision, have we?
I went to see it in the cinema. I remember that being a big deal at the start of that film, bizarrely. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
it was a big deal because Steven Seagal was a big name at that point. They killed him off.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
2.5 out of 3. I can live with that.
Yep.
That's not too bad. I know I was never getting the other one anyway. So that leads us to next week's choice. All right, so these are both kind of unofficial follow-ups to this film. Kind of accidental, but you have a choice between two.
Okay.
One is 1996 and the other is 1983. One is slightly easier to get hold of, in fairness. Should I go for that one?
Yeah, give me that.
I'll go for the one which is readily available at the moment.
Okay.
So the year is 1996.
1996.
1996.
Okay.
The director is Tony Scott. Another film we have mentioned a few times on this podcast.
1996, Tony Scott.
It doesn't feel like an obvious Tony Scott film until you remember what this film looks like. And you're saying like, oh yeah, it's a Tony Scott film. Would you like one of the stars?
Yeah.
There's 2 stars, 2 very obvious stars. Wesley Snipes is one of them.
Okay, it's a film that we have talked about a lot. It's The Fan, isn't it?
It is The Fan. It popped. It's been on my list for ages, but it recently popped up on Netflix. So it's just like it's easily accessible for people, and it's one of those films. It didn't get great reviews when it came out, but I fucking loved this film.
So
when
what's
I was
the
younger.
1983 one?
Oh, well, do you want to? I mean, we're going to do this at some point, but we'll forget about it, so it's fine. Yeah. It's because it's also written by God, what's his name? The guy who wrote this film, Lawrence Lasker. So 1983, Matthew Broderick. Also has computers in it.
That's War Games, isn't it?
War Games, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad. I'm not a huge fan of War Games, so that
really
struggle. We'll do it. That's fine. We will cover it.
But, no. I mean, no rush. It was just because it came up during the research for this.
Yeah.
It's a film I've seen once, but I can't really remember. But the thing is, I think The Fan's probably the right choice then for what we've come up with. I've noticed, because I looked it up as part of the research for this, I was like, do people, like, how do they feel about The Fan now? Loads of people seem to really like The Fan. A lot of people think it's massively underrated, which makes me feel pretty good about it. All I remember is it being super stylistic. You know, like you said, it's like, you think Tony Scott, you have an idea of what kind of film he's making. A kind of psychological sports movie. It's quite bizarre. But then you remember all the sequences in the rain and stuff. You just this film still looks like a fucking Tony Scott film. And I think Robert De Niro in particular gives an absolutely stellar performance. But I've not seen it in I've 20 years.
Benicio del Toro, isn't he?
God, I totally forgot about that.
I'm pretty sure because he's the guy who takes Wesley Snipes' number.
Yeah. No, I just it's been that long. My overridden memory of it is just him shouting Bobby a lot. And it's just been really rainy. And again, the reason I picked it is because it's set in San Francisco. So we're having an unofficial San Francisco season, apparently.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because there are loads of awesome San Francisco movies. Yeah. And this is another one of them. So, I am genuinely looking forward to rewatching this. I know that sounds ridiculous, I picked it. But as I said, it's a film I have really fond memories of. I was always surprised by the bad reviews, but it seems to have been somewhat reappraised. And I'll be interested to see how it holds up. I mean, dude, it's going to look great. It's a Tony Scott film. It's got two great leading men at the heart of the film. So, and it's all about baseball. I'm wearing a baseball jersey today on the podcast. I'm a big baseball fan as well. So.
I mean, I was wearing technically, I have a baseball jersey, but it's wrestling memorabilia. It's odd, but I was wearing that as well.
I think it's fair to say you're more of a wrestling fan than you are a baseball fan.
But I was wearing that today, and I thought we were going to match. But then it's 31 degrees here at the moment, so I decided to not wear that. Yeah. And
people would be like, if you're listening to me, like 31 degrees, it's not that hot. It's a completely different beast in the UK. You've seen the videos about how it's like 31 degrees feels like 1,000 degrees somewhere else. It's because we don't have air conditioning. So in your house, it fucking sucks. We just have to sit there and sweat. But anyway, that has been 1992's Sneakers. Please do join us next week for 1996's The Fan. Before we wrap this up, do you have anything to add?
I do, yeah. We mentioned last week, we asked, because we watched Invaders from Mars last week, a recommendation from listener Mark from Roanoke. He actually, we did ask for him to get back in touch to let us know what he felt about the film, because we were lukewarm on it. He's actually messaged back in, so I'm not gonna reiterate what he said. I'm just gonna let him tell us. So
awesome.
There we go.
Hey guys, Mark Lambert here. Thanks for doing a show on Invaders from Mars. Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with both of your takes on the movie. It's really terrible in all the ways it can be. The acting, the script, and many of the effects. And yes, the kids running is atrocious. I would definitely give it 2 stars. Would I recommend it to anyone? It depends. As a kid, and I'm slightly older than you guys, I watched a lot of really bad movies in the 80s. After Star Wars, every studio and production company in the world came out with sci-fi junk. I can't even begin to tell you how many hours I've spent in front of the TV and in the theater watching terrible sci-fi. Metal Storm, Beastmaster, Space Hunter, and even David Lynch's Doom. So much bad cinema. Invaders from Mars just reminds me of a rainy summer afternoon sitting in front of the TV watching Trek and loving every minute of it. In short, I think it's looking back with rose-colored glasses. Having said all that, objectively, yes, Invaders from Mars is truly atrocious.
Objectively, it's atrocious, but it's things you love. And you're preaching to the choir, mate, about watching terrible films in the 80s. Like, if anyone was watching terrible films in the 80s, I'll hold my hand up. It was this guy.
Yeah, you watch even more than me, that's for sure. But no, I think we all fundamentally agree, because obviously, even when he suggested we cover the podcast, and it was, as we mentioned, on the list, is that, he was fully aware of what kind of film this was going into it, but there is a certain charm to it. And even though, he gave it 2 stars, and I think we both gave it 2 stars on the podcast last week, is that it is objectively a bad film, but I think we all enjoyed rewatching it. It's like, for all its faults, it is a fun film. And you have to remember, this is a podcast that very purposefully chose Robot Jocks as our 200th film. We knew that isn't a great film. We know that isn't a good film, but we have incredibly fond memories of growing up with that film. And of course, you watch it back now, and I think we both probably gave that a 2 as well. But you're just like, I still kind of enjoy it. I still have a soft spot for that film.
We got to shout out Steve, though, for sending us Robot Jocks as well.
Oh, yeah.
He sent it to us on DVD, bless him.
That's the best gift we received from somebody, because we had genuine issues sourcing Robot Jocks, and that's the only reason it took until episode 200. But eventually we're just like, we're going to wait until 200, and there's like a special episode, we're going to do fucking Robot Jocks. But he sent us the DVD, which was cool. But yeah, there are really bad 2-star films. Some 2-star films you watch, they're either super forgettable or they're just bad, if you know what I mean. Or even some of them aren't necessarily bad, they're just disappointing and forgettable. Invaders from Mars is a bad film, but it is memorable and it is charming. But it's still bad. It's still a 2-star film. But you can have an enjoyable 2-star film, as being proven by that. Yeah. So no regrets covering it for the podcast whatsoever. So good choice, dude.
Not at all. I will reiterate, as always, as you can tell from Mark, you can send us voicemails, you can send us messages, so feel free.
And suggestions for future episodes.
Suggestions for future episodes, yeah. Feel free to reach out. Give us your thoughts.
We could recover, because we have done a revisit season in the past, because some of our earliest episodes, the audio isn't great, and obviously you're finding your feet. So we did a season, I think it was in the early 200s, where we revisited 4 of the first 10 episodes, and basically, we didn't we just redid them. Just, without kind of going back and listening to the original ones. And I think we will do that again. So if there's enough we mentioned some RoboCops out there, thing, there's a whole bunch. But anyway, like you said, the point is, if you have any suggestions, please do let us know. But yeah, thanks again for sending us the voicemail and the suggestion. Is that the end of the podcast?
Yeah.
Weird way of putting it, but I think that is the end of the podcast.
That is the end of the podcast, mate, yeah.
Okay, I've been Liam. He has been Rob, and you have been listening to the Hey Guys podcast. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you guys!